co-founder. We out of college, we began to build Birdie, another startup. So, and we were hackers, we were builders, and we wanted to build a product. We wanted to solve a pain, something. And actually, without even noticing it, we became managers because we hired a few developers, and we were like, I think we were awful managers, and we made a lot of mistakes, a lot, and we screwed up a lot. And I think that it's a combination of few things, right? First is that it's hard. Of course, it's hard. But second is that I think that we, as engineers, are not practically and naturally skilled at it. We need to learn, we need to grow. And third thing is that you don't always have all the resources and all the help to grow as fast as needed and as fast as your environment, your investors, or your managers ask you to do. And we need to grow, and we need to grow fast as managers. So sorry guys for all the former employees we had, for all the mistakes and how we screwed up. So we even went from a team of 10 to a team of 3. So 3 co-founders, so at least the same co-founders, but we screwed up a lot. But hopefully we are now better, and we are trying to improve even more in the future. And I think that the most important thing that we learn, and we learned it the hard way, is that people leave their managers. They don't leave their company. People don't leave their company, they leave their managers. And we learned it the hard way, and hopefully it's not going to be the case anymore. I hope that at least less. So the good news is that you have a community of great experienced engineering leaders in the world, in the Silicon Valley, and they are willing to help. They have the experience, they have the knowledge, and they want to share their knowledge, and they want to help. In 3 months, we gathered almost 100 mentors. So really good job, guys, and thank you so much, all of you. I know that many of you are here today. Can you raise your hand? I think you are almost 40 mentors. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much again for all of this, because none of this would have been possible without you. And the good news is that there are many and many more of them anywhere, and we need to find them, and we need to make their time efficient. They do have time. They do have time to help. Not much time, but they do have time. And if they, so the 100 mentors accepted to dedicate 30 minutes of their time per week to help out. If they happen to dedicate 30 minutes of their time per week, they don't want to spend 30 minutes of their time per week plus 20 minutes of scheduling, rescheduling, etc. They want to spend 30 minutes with someone actually helping. They don't want to spend 30 minutes with someone who is absolutely not relevant, and they want to spend 30 minutes with someone they can actually help. And they don't want to spend 30 minutes with someone and having no news afterwards. Right. So we provide all of them for you, for the mentors. So we provide all the tools around scheduling, rescheduling. We provide the matching for you, so that if book you only with mentees you can actually help. And we try to understand the types of problems that require some follow-up calls, and sometimes longer-term relationship needs to happen between a mentor and a mentee. So we helped a lot of different mentees. Some of them, sometimes, some of them only wanted to hear what they already knew, and just they needed to hear something, right? Some of them received from you some life-changing advice. It happens, and only in 30 minutes, so it happens. And some of them just wanted to have someone who feel empathy about their pain or about a situation they are experiencing right now. but most of them and all of them had really like help, and the product has been really helpful and impactful to them. So now I will let the stage to our mentors, who are also our speakers, and we are going to go through the journey and the life of an engineering manager. So usually when you become an engineering manager, you have to face this difficult transition from an individual contributor to a manager. And then you make a lot of mistakes. And some engineering leaders are going to tell about their worst mistakes. Hopefully you become a better leader and you become a legitimate and a good leader. And then when you happen to become good at managing people, when you happen to become good at managing IC, you need to transition again from manager of IC to manager of manager, and this transition is hard, right? And hopefully, if you go through all the steps, you might have the responsibility to build an engineering structure. So thank you again all for being here, and I let the stage to Shivani.
So, as you may have seen, we have a very exciting program tonight. Our first speaker tonight is Shivani Sharma. Shivani is a Senior Director of Engineering at Slack. So after having worked at Google, IBM, and Big during 10 years, Shivani is now at Slack, and despite having testified being passionate about engineering management, her transition from individual contributor to manager hasn't been easy at first. So thank you very much, Shivani, for accepting to testify about your experience tonight. Can you all hear me? Great. Hi, everyone. This is such a great event. There's so many people here. It's so awesome to see all of you here to make this event a success. I'm very excited. First of all, I wanted to thank Kwang and the Plato team. I'm truly honored that you invited me to speak here tonight. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Shivani Sharma, and I'm a senior engineering manager at Slack. I'm also one of the organizers of a conference called Calibrate, which is focused on how to level up newly minted engineering managers and teach them day-to-day tactical tips that they can go and implement in their day right after attending the conference. So a little bit about how I got acquainted with Plato. So Kwang reached out to me last December, last year, and he came to talk to me about Plato and how he was looking for engineering managers to join the community because it was a community he wanted to grow to help other engineering managers. And to make a network available to people to teach skills, give advice, even just how to give a great one-on-one. There are so many things that you can learn from other people that is hard to get from books. So he asked me if I wanted to be a part of this. I said, of course I want to be a part of this. As an engineering manager, I enjoy leveling up the engineers around me. And so if I have a way to have an impact to level up other managers around me, I want to be a part of that because it's something I'm passionate about, and that's why I became an engineering manager. So a little bit about well, first, why I became an engineering manager. So as an engineer and as a lead at some of the companies I worked at, there were several things that I was doing consistently that were pointed out by my peers and by my managers. So the first one was resolving conflict on the team and keeping the team focused on the goals that we had to accomplish, especially under tight deadlines. And I was doing this consistently and just keeping the team focused. So not only was I leading the team on our initiatives technically, but I was also keeping the team gelled. So that dynamic, whether it was solving technical disagreements or even just personnel disagreements, and sometimes we can all get a little emotional. So that was one thing I was doing. The other thing was that I was building positive working relationships with the people that I worked with and with other folks throughout the organization. So that was also a consistent thing I did. And the third thing was that I really enjoyed coaching and mentoring others, whether it was the interns and being a part of putting together the intern summer program, And that was the part that actually fulfilled me the most, to mentor and coach others. So my actual transition to engineering management. So I made the decision to pursue a management career path because there were other leaders around me and including my manager, that validated that I was doing these things consistently and that I would be a good candidate for this. And getting that's something that I was thinking about, but hearing that from others also validate that gave me the confidence to be like, yes, this is what I want to do, and actually work on a path with my manager to get there. So a little bit about what that transition was like for me. So I actually, 8 years ago, I joined a startup company called Fix. And a few years later, we got acquired by IBM. So being a company of 70 engineers, well, first of all, the whole company was 150 people. And being acquired by a 400,000 person organization came with a lot of change. And we also went from having 70 engineers working on our technology to having locally to over 500 engineers working on our technology globally. So it might be similar to some of the experiences you have with a fast rising startup. So I had my own version of scale there, and that created challenges with processes and organization, and our hiring was different. It was more like other folks from IBM around the world working in other departments were hiring from other organizations and departments to work on our technology because it was the new area. So when I actually did get the opportunity to move into a management, this is my environment. So the actual week that I started, it was quite interesting. So the announcement was made last week of July. So my first week on the job was in August. So my new manager lived in Dublin, and my new peer managers and the other counterpart of the engineering team lived in Rome. So first week of August, there's a lot of European people here. Can you guess what it was like? It was quite lonely because everyone was on vacation. I was the only person, and I'd never done this before. And I had my local team, but it was on an adjacent team that I didn't actually know what they were doing on a day-to-day level. So I relied a lot on my engineers. And at that point, I only had mentors that were engineers. I didn't have mentors that were other managers, and my actual manager and my peers were all unavailable. The other challenge to this was that my overlap with them every day was before 9 a.m. Pacific time. So I didn't exactly get very much time to bounce ideas, or if I encountered something midday that I needed to have a difficult conversation with someone, how to navigate that. So that proved challenging as well. And yeah, so I guess there's 3 things that I hope that you take away from this. The first one is, I don't know if you've noticed, but I talked about this as a career path change. I did not say that it was a promotion. So I think it's important to know that if you are thinking about being an engineering manager, this is a lateral change. It is completely different. And there are some similarities, but the key difference is that as an engineer, you're responsible for lines of code and making that work in an efficient system. And as an engineering manager, you're responsible for groups of people and making that work as an efficient system. And as an engineer, you can tell the computer to do, you can write that code, and it will do the same thing every time. Humans don't exactly work like that. So, yeah, I guess it's important to know that it's a lateral change. The second thing is that I would get a mentor as soon as possible. I would get a mentor as soon as you're even seriously considering an engineering management path. For me, when I did that transition, I pretty much buried myself in books. Every management book I could possibly get my hands on, and there's a lot of books that people read these days. And trust me, I've read them all. I tried to learn. The other thing is some companies will have trainings. So at IBM, as you can imagine, there are really good trainers there. The first available training that I could attend was 9 months out, so I really did have to read books and figure it out the first 9 months, and I made a ton of mistakes. So yeah, get a mentor as soon as possible. Books are great, but mentors are better. And the last point I wanted to make is that don't be afraid to make mistakes. it's going to happen. Humans are predictable, and even if you perfectly planned out the talk that you're going to have with someone, whether it's about a low performance or even a normal routine compensation discussion that's around performance review time, they don't always go according to plan. You don't know what's always going on with people. And I would say that the learning doesn't stop. I think it happens. You get really good at being an engineering manager, and then you manage managers, and then there's different challenges that come with that. So I think it's continuous learning, continuously iterating, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. All right, so we have Slido. So we have a couple questions here. Were you frustrated not to code anymore? I feel like that's a question that gets asked a lot, and that's something that I think a lot of new engineering managers struggle with. No, I was not frustrated when I didn't get to code anymore. Even when I was an engineering leader, like a tech lead on my team, I really enjoyed, I saw the effect that I had when I was able to resolve differences and keep the team focused on our goals. And at IBM, with lots of customers, there's a lot of pressure sometimes and a lot of money tied to that. So being in that kind of an environment, I saw that how I was able to make an effect on getting these teams to gel, especially when we're growing and also working in a global company with engineers everywhere. So, and also because I specifically chose this path because I truly believe it is a lateral move and not a promotion. I think I was perhaps mentally prepared that this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to level up and impact others. Sorry, I keep switching. How do you identify a mentor, and what do you look for in a mentor? So I would say the first thing is someone that's got a good deal of experience, whether it's similar to your environment, whether you've been at big companies or small companies. So I think the types of experiences that this mentor has had. The other thing I would say is that's important is that you should have a human bond with this person. You need to be able to talk about some hard things. I've definitely have had some tough conversations with my mentor and even with some of my coaches, because some problems are hard, and when you have a dysfunctional team, it can be extremely emotionally draining. And sometimes you just break down in front of that coach or in front of that mentor because you really want to help the people. I think empathy is a big part of being an engineering manager. And yeah, so I look for that human connection first and foremost. And how are we on time? One more. Okay. What's your favorite book that explains your management philosophy? Ooh, that's a good one. I would say Peopleware is a good one. I forgot the author, but that's a good one. It kind of explains why certain teams are the way they are. Also, I very much am behind Google's Aristotle project, which they did, and that was to try to figure out, there's actually an article, if you Google Aristotle, you'll find an article that talks about what made a team productive. They sliced and diced it by EQ, by personalities, introvert, extrovert. They had a number of parameters that they sliced and diced this information by, and they did this with a lot of teams. They did a big data set. What it came down to was social psychological safety. So when people have mutual respect and trust with one another, that is when they're more open to other people's ideas. They're better listeners with one another, and that is what creates that. That is when you can have the synergy of people being productive on a higher level. So in Google's project, they didn't say that the room with the highest IQs was most productive, because you can have a bunch of really, really smart people, but if they don't get along, they'll get nothing done. So it's actually better to have people that gel well together, and that's why engineering management is so important. All right, that's it.
Thank you so much, Shivani. So now it's the second talk. It's a panel moderated by Mc Carrick with 3 speakers. So first we've got Benjamin Lepoint. So we can pronounce it in a very French way, or not. So Benjamin is one of our first mentors. Thank you so much for coming from New York tonight, just for the event. With 12 years in the tech industry, Benjamin is now Senior Director of Engineering at Plato. So the second speaker tonight, I come to him on the speaker's bench, is Brett Huff. Are you? So welcome, Brett. Thank you so much for coming from Idaho tonight. When we knew you, you were engineering manager at Trello. Now you're engineering manager at Atlassian. So thank you so much for coming tonight and joining the panel about migration. Tasmin, you're the third speaker of this panel. Thank you so much. Tasmin is lead ride at Uber. Sorry. Traveler growth. Driver growth. Okay, at Uber. That's okay. So Tasmin has worked at Google before, and also at sorry.
So I've been at Yelp for a couple of years, and before that at Microsoft for more than 10 years. Been in the industry for more than a decade.
Yeah, and we spotted Tasmin because of the several articles that you wrote on the internet. So thank you so much for coming and for being so perfect in the role of mentor at Plato. So the moderator of the panel tonight is Mc Carrick, VP Engineering at Soulmate. So welcome, Christian. Christian has had more than 20 years of experience in the tech industry and 12 years of experience in management. And he was spotted as the best person to be a moderator tonight because he has great human skills and makes everyone happy.
All right, great. We did the introduction, so I can skip and jump right into the panel. Hello, y'all. How you doing tonight? Great. All right, perfect. So first of all, I wanted to everyone introduce themselves here. There will be audience participation. I'm going to cover that actually pretty quickly, right? So what I want you to do, and wait before I say go, is I want everyone to sort of turn to the person next to you, left or right, and just do a 30-second, hi, how are you, who are you, get their name, where they work for. And the reason for that is, although we're up here, and we have a lot of good experience, we have a lot of good stuff, I've found that I've learned some of the best things from most junior employees and from the most serendipitous conversations I've had, whether it's Uber pool or anything. So, okay, 20 seconds now, you've been doing it, right? Ready? Go. Ready?
It's about having
Right. You guys have a minute, so we're going to throw top one question at the end. 30 seconds. There's actually a very good time management thing that I try to teach people, where you actually say, you don't look at the clock, you can't do anything, you say, how long is 1 minute? And then people get it completely wrong, right? So that's just a different thing. Time management skills is important, which is a mistake I've often made. But anyway, getting into this, I'll start off with a quote by Oscar Wilde. experience is simply the name that we give our mistakes, right? And I think that's what comes from wisdom, and a lot of people talk about that, right? We've all been here. Both new and seasoned managers make mistakes. It's not a question of if, but when. When are you going to make them? When are you going to make your next one, right? The important thing, though, is that we learn from them. We learn from our own mistakes, and we evolve enough to learn from other people's mistakes. That's the purpose of why we're here tonight, to help others learn from our mistakes and share our knowledge. So hopefully every software engineering manager here can become a better leader. So I'm going to jump into this now with the panel's questions, and I'll start with the sort of topic of the day, right? What is your worst mistake as a manager? I'll go left to right in this case. You have the microphone?
So I'll just categorically say not giving the proper respect to people in public sector. And basically, in front of others, addressing something in a way that wasn't constructive and that was humiliating.
Yeah, right. So I think that's good. We've been in a lot of cases and how when you do it right away or after the fact. Okay. What about you?
Categorically, I would say that my biggest mistake is misplaced trust. That's either trusting somebody too much or not trusting them enough. And the biggest example of that would be trusting my career arc to my manager too much, and expecting him to guide me to become a manager instead of learning the things I need to learn and making those mistakes that become experience.
Super interesting, because recently someone asked me, just in context of what you said, recently someone asked me, it's like, hey, what are your asks for your manager? It's like, it's a very good question. I'm not used to actually making asks of my manager because, I'm used to just doing it because I cannot trust my manager to do it for me. It's an important lesson. You need to know it from your managers as well. But for me, it's been assuming that my interpretation of an ask on another person, another team, another part of the organization aligns with what they assume my ask is of them. So communication is hard. It's just freaking hard no matter how hard you try. And assumptions, if you will, on communication that may have happened at some point in time can lead down, spiral down the path of kind of assuming wrong intent, can lead down the path of misplaced trust, and all of that sort of like spiral into just not achieving common goals at the end of the day. So for me, it's just like making sure that assumptions are very, very clear on all parties included. As part of continuous learning, continuous improvement, and many mistakes made from that.
So back to Benjamin for a second. You made a mistake. It's a question of trust. How did you bounce back? Is there anything specific that you learned that you learned better to not do next time?
Yeah, really just breathe. Like, so sometimes I run into situations where I've asked someone to not do something a few times, and then I see it happen, and I'm pretty like go after things. Like that's kind of my personality. And if I don't pay attention, if I'm not having enough self-awareness that like I'm about to go, dude, what are you doing? Like, yeah, I just have to like chill, write it down, talk about it in our next one-on-one, something like that.
Take a step back, right? Yeah, okay, excellent. Going to the next thing, we've all made mistakes, and this isn't necessarily about a specific mistake we made, but in your career, going back, is there anything, if you wish you could put at one point in time, I would do something different? Anything that you wish you could go back and change, that gives the movie Sliding Doors, where the whole life changes from one decision to make. Anything that, who wants to grab this one first? Anyone that you might go back and say?
I mean, I got a whole bunch of things, but we're talking like experience, right? So, like literally, if I didn't humiliate this one dude, I wouldn't have known, like, don't do that. Like it sucked, and I wish I could like not do that again, but I'm kind of glad I did it in a sense.
Learn from something before it was a massive one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I was thinking very much the same thing. It's like most of these mistakes become experiences. They're the things that made me who I am, and I wish that I could have learned some of them from other people. But watch other people's mistakes, and And I wish that sometimes I had been more teachable and just said, okay, I've got to learn this the first time instead of the fifth time. But got to make those mistakes at some point.
Yeah, I'd say that for me, it has been becoming more conscious of proactively asking for feedback, because a lot of what's been mentioned here is like, you got to make a mistake. And then someone's got to tell you that you make a mistake, right? Oftentimes you make mistakes and you don't know, people will tell you. And so I've tried really hard now to kind of read body language. In fact, this morning in the meeting, I noticed one of my youngs had a little bit of a snappy moment. It's like, hey, what happened? Why did you snap in the meeting? Was it something I did? We had a really positive conversation after that, because my intent was misconstrued and he snapped in the moment because he was super anxious. And that led to us having a good dialogue and make sure we corrected our intent to each other of what we were trying to get out of the situation. And that led to like a positive outcome at the end of it. So for me, it's become very, very important to sort of like read people in the moment so that you can actually ask for feedback, because unconsciously you may be doing things that may, just kind of rub people the wrong way. I think a lot of engineers have sort of an empathy issue, if you will, that's very common. I don't know, so recently I was talking to someone and they gave me a very, very interesting sort of insight, if you will. It's like, there are 3 things that you need to look for: authenticity, logic, and empathy. And every one of us have like one of them is a wobble. It's things that they're not super great at. And a lot of engineers apparently seem to have, guess what empathy is a wobble, right? And essentially, like, you can't necessarily tell when people, when we rub people the wrong way. So just kind of reading people a little better.
Great. So one of the things out there, so Google, most of you have heard of, is a project, and you mentioned it previously, and part of their project Oxygen, and they really went out and really did a lot of qualitative analytics about what makes good managers. They found 8 points, which you can Google online and find them. But the interesting thing is that the commonality that they showed for what made the worst managers that they did the polling surveys on, the worst managers were guilty of this. And it was those who were too busy doing to be managing, right? Continuing to be the technical versus the team expert. So just raise your hand in the panel. Anyone here in the early days or continue, how many have been guilty of doing that trap, right? So anyone in the audience here now, who's raised your hand, whether you do it today, you've done it, who has done more doing than managing, right? It's a common trap that so many of us fall into, right? On that, like, any tips on, because especially when you're first-time manager and you move from the individual contributor to the manager, it's one of the hardest things to do. Any tips on how do you stop doing and entrust your team to do with your time?
I want to kind of take that a different way.
Absolutely.
I want to caution, don't go too far the other way. One of my worst managers, he was, I like to call him a master of the system and nothing else. He knew all of the right cards to play, all of the right people to talk to, and he would block us at a number of avenues and would make life hard for us. This is when I was just new to the industry. And so don't go too far the other way. You still need to know what you do. You don't just run the system.
It's definitely a good point, right? You need to get the trust and respect of your team and still being able to get into the weeds and know what you're talking about if you're not necessarily coding them.
So when I coach my managers, I coach them about three things that I index on as a manager: process, project, product, and people. They're all equal level, so it's not like one is more weighted than the other. Now, of course, within a week or month or a year, you may over-index on one versus the other, but they're all equally weighted. And when you're too much into the weeds, into the detail, you're probably likely neglecting one of these 3 levers. And so what I tend to kind of over-index on is make sure you're contributing on all of these 3 levels. Where is the product headed? You need to look at the big picture as a manager and understand where the product and the team is headed. But then you need to be able to be in the detail and understand the project level detail so you know what the technical direction the architectural decisions that a team is making, how we're going to lay out the milestones, and how we're going to execute. Like, your job is to make sure you execute and deliver. And then very importantly, last finally, is also the people, which is probably the most important of them all. Like, what or how you can get people to achieve their goals and make them successful. So that's kind of how I always just go by the 3 Ps and talk about the Ps.
I just stopped going to Scrum meetings. And then eventually I was like, oh, I'm going to jump in. Oh, man, I don't even know what's going on. Like, literally, it depends. It depends on your context, right? You know, I'm assuming there's a lot of us in here that use Agile, some degree or not. Self-organizing teams, you got to trust them to self-organize. So you have to learn to evaluate whether or not that organization is happening, a self-organization is happening, and it requires having engineers that you trust. I'm not saying just blindly give it over. You have to develop a rapport, and you have to see output that has been performance that is not just one. They continue to deliver on that, and then you can step away. Still check in though. Got to have a nice rapport with like your tech lead. Still got to challenge some of the decisions that they're making. But
Great.
that's all I got.
Great. Excellent. Brett, quick question for you. You've previously given a talk about hard decisions and trade-offs. Okay. One of the things I find too is that some of my managers, they're so afraid of making mistakes that they actually don't make the decision. Right. So to that point, quickly, how would you advise some of these new managers going about making hard decisions without being so afraid about messing up?
If you're afraid to make a decision, you need more input. So if there is a decision to be made and you feel uncomfortable making it, go talk to people. Talk to people who know more than you. A lot of times that is the people underneath you. So I like to tell the people that I work with, I could not be hired into your job because I don't know as much as you. I am not as good of a coder as you are in JavaScript because that's what we use. That's a language that I've never really spent a lot of time with. So if you are uncomfortable making a decision, go talk to people. That's your job. You talk to people until you either get enough people pushing in one direction or you get enough clarity that you can say, this is where we go.
Perfect. There's one for you. In your talk that you gave with engineering, is that right? Engineering, that's it. Again, you talked, and previously you talked about the mentor, right? The importance of getting a mentor early on, and it's something I completely agree with too. It sort of changed my career trajectory. In the beginning, I didn't have one, and then I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? So explain a little bit why, the importance of why you think having a mentor is so important, and why you would advise people here to go out.
Yeah, I'd say that a mentor is someone who has no real sort of tired connection to your day-to-day in a lot of ways, and so they're a sounding board and being able to give you an idea or a suggestion or input from a neutral, no investment in sort of the outcome, if you will. And so I don't necessarily believe in like, hey, there's a one mentor for like the rest of eternity, that you have one mentor that's going to work with you for the rest of eternity. I try to like optimize for what are the 2 or 3 skills that I'm trying to get better at for the next year. And I try to optimize for my mentors that can help me, that actually are good at those skills, that can help me grow in those areas. And so usually I'll have maybe a couple of mentors that I'll meet with, even now, after having been in the industry for many years, kind of bounce ideas off of, or kind of lay out a situation, like, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. What would you do in this situation? And they would give you some input. 3/4 of it may not directly apply to your situation, and that's okay, but those 3/4, that input will give you insight and perspective into how you should handle the situation that you're in. And so for me, that's what mentors provide. They're one sounding board, so you just want to like really bitch and complain. They can be really productive. But 2, it's most importantly, is also like giving you perspective. And perspective is often received when people have been through their own life experiences, people on this panel, to give you ideas on how you can approach problems, sometimes even laid out structure. So it's like, how do you even approach solving a problem? There's a hard problem you're trying to solve, a hard decision you're trying to make. You don't really know how to make it. They might provide you a structure that will help you make that decision at the end of it. one very important piece to that structure is what you said, data. That's an important piece to that structure and how do you make hard decisions. And I think mentors help you provide that structure.
Perfect. And question for you, or actually comment for you, Benjamin. I noticed in a past life you did some soccer coaching, right? In 30, 45 seconds, have you felt that that has helped you at all in being an enduring manager?
You're coaching middle school and high school boys at an all boys Catholic school a lot, like patience. And and it wasn't a cheap school, so it was not only like entitlement, everything you could think of.
So your typical engineer.
I'm telling you, like the overlap is dramatic.
Perfect. So on that note, I want to move into a couple of questions that we have from the audience, and you can kind of pick a straw or go first. One of the first ones here, and I hear this a lot, right? How do you stay relevant, right? How do you not become the manager, right? The character of the manager who doesn't know anything everyone's talking about, you become Stu, right? How do you stay relevant, right? Anyone want to pick this one up first?
I'm going to get your name wrong. Shivani? Shivani. I didn't get it wrong. Sweet. Reiterating your point. Management is an entirely different skill set from coding. So if you're doing both, then you have to stay relevant in coding. If you're not, and you're just doing management, stay relevant in management. Leave the coding up to everybody else.
The only thing I would add to that is it depends on your context. So I 100% agree. You have to own management, you have to own leadership, which is what we were talking about earlier about making tough decisions without all the data. That's being a leader. You have to own that, but like in my context, if I don't have a clue technically, I don't get the respect of the engineers. So what I do is I conduct all the interviews regularly. I review all the code samples that come in, so I'm staying relevant.
Sure. You got one? You got an answer?
So I differentiate between code and architecture and design decisions. And usually I'm never involved in code. My team is about 50, 60 people. I'm not going to be in the code details, but what I do, I'm still very, very into is in the architecture of the systems. And when I join a new team and a new team lead, if you will, I do architecture reviews. I just try to have the team tell me about what they work on. It's actually really good because engineers love talking to their skip level on, hey, this is the cool thing I built. It's a really great way to get engineers to feel like they're talking to their skip level, but also, more importantly, gives you a very good insight into what the systems are and how they work well together. And you can abstract out and say, okay, why did we make certain design decisions on this particular product that are so uniquely different than this other product that are so similar? So it really helps you identify patterns.
I'm going to give this next one to you too, because it's a good mic. This is a very interesting one because I don't think it's enough sort of credit. As you become a manager, it becomes more and more important to manage up, right? Managing up and managing out. So one of the questions is here, how do you manage a manager? And it was one of the biggest mistakes on the panel. One of the biggest mistakes I ever made was not properly managing my manager. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are two aspects to it. So one is how I like to be perceived so that people who, my skip level, how they feel about coming to me, and then how I manage my managers are very different. But for folks who are my skip level, the only thing I try to strive for is the comfort and trust that they can come to me with anything. That's the only thing I strive for. If I've achieved that comfort and trust that they can come to me with any problem, that's it, that's done. Right? That means that they will, if they have a challenge or a problem, they'll feel comfortable coming and talking to me. When I'm managing my manager, it looks very, very different because at that point in time, I'm trying to optimize for what is it that they want to hear the most about. How do I get them to talk the most? Because honestly, people love to talk. You can see that right now. So yeah, you want to get your skip level to talk more. And when you're in a meeting with them, you want to make sure that you understand how they do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe that my #1 job is to make my manager's job easier. I didn't used to think that. I used to think I had to fight them and stand up and always contradict what they're saying. So once I realized that, because I got smacked down too many times for doing the other, I then tailored how I interacted with my manager, who was wicked smart, way smarter than me. and I learn. So I got to a point where I actually understand or even ask me what he's going to be looking for. And I over-deliver on that. Before he asks it, I send it to him, and things of that nature.
Brent, anything to add?
I concur.
Well, perfect. I think that's about kind of the time for this session here. We're ending up just about on time. I want to thank all for you. I appreciate your time up here. New release.
Yeah, sorry it's a bit short because we wanted to cover a lot of topics. So we have a second panel with Kristen as the moderator that I'm not going to present again. We have this time 4 speakers. So the first speaker is Jean Su. Thank you so much, Jean, for coming tonight. Jean is a consultant in engineering, and she was, when we got to know her, she was an engineering manager at Medium. She's also worked at Google and Tools, and you have now recently decided to work as a consultant. So the second speaker tonight is Nicole Candice. Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming too. Nicole has always worked in early stage startups. You have said that you got into engineering management by accident almost, because the company you worked in needed some structure and you were the default choice. We don't really believe it when we look at your mentor quote, so we're very happy to have you as a mentor at Plato. So the third speaker tonight for this panel about how to become a legitimate leader is Richard Sun. Richard Sun has always worked in the gaming industry. You're today senior engineering manager at Kadam, and you will soon go and join Facebook as an engineering manager on the Spaces social VR team. So welcome, Richard. So the last speaker of this panel on how to become a legitimate leader tonight is Guy Huang. Hi Guy, I didn't see you during the cocktail, nice to see you. Guy has an impressive track record. He's now senior engineering manager at Facebook, supporting 60 and more engineers. Before that, you did a PhD at Google, Facebook, Bell Labs, and Oracle Research. So despite this very impressive past, you shared about your difficulty to manage some people who had more engineering experience than you, and how to become a legitimate leader was hard in such situations. So thank you very much, Guy, for coming tonight.
I'm doing 2 shows a night all week. I'll be here. First, I wanted to ask, welcome everyone. I appreciate you coming aboard. Audience participation time again. How many people are here are new engineering managers with less than 2 years of experience? So raise your hand. How many have less than 2 years experience? So we can kind of, from the panel, can get a sense of how we're going to gauge how we talk to anyone, director, VP level above here. Right? Sorry, tough life. That would still. So first off, why is leadership important? Right? I'll start off with a quote by Peter Drucker. Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. Okay? I think there's been a lot of news lately about companies behaving badly, both in Silicon Valley and outside of Silicon Valley, United, setting bad or no examples is even just as bad for employees. Creating cultures where poor behavior is considered accepted. And my opinion is that in general, our industry, at least in the past, has not had a good track record of producing great leaders, right? We've had great sort of people that have been visionaries, but from the top down, it hasn't really been a priority for Silicon Valley to produce and focus on engineering leadership and management and that type of cultures and values. With strong leadership, without strong leadership, you also tend to ignore some of the more meatier topics and pointed topics today that we're facing, such as gender equality, ageism, sexism, perceived elitism, etc. I think good leaders should and could tackle these items. I think that's why it's very important. Again, final wrapping up this intro with another quote by Peter Drucker is that with the rise of the knowledge worker, one does not manage people. The task is to lead. Right? So the first question that I sort of have for the panel here today is, just what is your definition of leadership? If you were to define leadership, what characteristics would you use to define a leader?
So for me, a good leader is someone that people want to follow, which is pretty obvious, but if someone asked me this once, I started listing things like good communication, they make the team look good, but I think it's really someone people want to follow, and whether that's another company or within the company, someone who makes you better at what you do in some way.
So I would echo that, and that one of the roles of the leader is to help guide people towards a common goal that they share.
Okay.
Okay, so a couple things. For me, I define leadership slightly different than management.
Yep. For
managers and leaders, there can be leaders in our team who are not. And something I sort of thought of in the last year when talking about team is it occurred to me, so you all are around engineers, right? Engineers are very opinionated people, right? They love to complain about something that they don't see that's wrong. What I noticed over time is there's being a leader, a non-leader engineer. A non-leader engineer complains. A leader engineer maybe complain, but then be proactive about solving the problem. So that's what's something I've been like.
Excellent. Yeah.
Cool. You guys hear me?
Yes.
You know this is the worst talk, right? They cover everything. So I kind of agree all of them. I think that I'm a big fan of John Maxwell. I'm gonna cite what he said, what his leader is. Basically, leader is all influence. Leadership is all influence. Leader is the influence. So people here mentioned that help other people, guide other people. That's all influence. That's not have to be manager. Every one of us is leader. Right? We don't have to be leader at work. We can be leader at home. In our social circle. As long as we have influence, we are leaders.
You can keep the mic, so you don't want to put you in the spot in the end every single time. We've all seen the movie The Office, I think, and in some cases Silicon Valley, we've seen the bumbling idiot of a boss and manager, right? None of us, I think, aspire to be that. But there's a difference, and you mentioned it. There's a difference between leader and manager, right? So, and in your words a little bit, what is the difference that you see between a manager and a leader? Yeah?
I didn't see that. I agree. Okay, I agree. So the difference between leader and manager, I think I agree. So there are leaders who are not managers, there are managers who are not leaders. And there are leaders and there are people who both leaders and managers. And there are people who, I think they are completely different. So managers get the things do the right thing, to get things right, and leaders get the right thing. I think I said you will use that. So, in the end of the day, I think that, in my opinion, leaders is more like a what, and then managers are how. Leaders control the direction, the goals, but managers control the speed, the velocity, how to get there. So that's the general on the hand.
Great. Anyone else in panel there?
I lost track of the question.
Just a little bit different. You brought it up. What in your mind is the difference between a manager and a leader?
So I'm going to cheat a little bit and quote from a book I read called High Output Management, which by this famous dude in Song gets quoted a lot. But he pointed out that the output of an individual contributor is whatever they're building. The output of a manager is the collective output of the team. Right? That's not necessarily true for like a leader. A leader is just someone who's like solving problems, reading the thought. But your manager, you should be judged on the output of people that you're managing.
Your sphere of influence can potentially be good. Okay.
One point of difference I would add is if you are in a position, you're a leader but not a manager, then the big difference to me would be that managers have positional authority. So they can speak from that positional authority and they can use that in how they influence their team. While if you're a leader without being a manager, then you need to know how to guide people and how to influence people without depending on positional authority.
Anything else to add? Get to the end. So one of the things that you really talked about, and I was going to bring up too, is there is that difference between you can be a leader without being a manager and being a manager without being a leader, right? One of the examples in companies, especially in Silicon Valley, you see as a product manager, right? They're one of the people that in a lot of cases have this a lot of responsibility that we all work with them, but they don't have that direct management ability to get things done. So I think a lot of product managers in cases can be unsung heroes because product managers here, pat them back. The other thing is, so give me any examples you have of people in the industry or outside of the industry where you would say are leaders, right, without having that authority, without having that type of executive. If they're not the boss, but they can be a leader. Any examples you think of? Anyone in the audience, any examples of what you would find as leaders providing leadership that aren't in any sort of specific position of authority, now or historical?
Well, you have people that act as the voice of the team. A lot of, especially many people are shy. They're afraid to speak with colleagues or you have problems, but they can help speak themselves. So sometimes you just draw in a position where you know a lot of things and everyone's to speak up.
Yeah, so those people that are actually, starting to, they're taking that influence, they're not managing, but they're trying to make something happen even though they don't have the authority. Yes, Russ?
Very early engineers also have some privilege.
Very early engineers. Yep. And then in history, there's two examples, right? You can think of Gandhi, Martin Luther King, where these are also kind of external examples of people who are really that are leaders, but never really were in a position of authority or power, right? So the other question I want to ask you guys is, how many of you in the audience have ever taken a course growing up or gotten a coach or anything for sports or music or piano teacher or anything? Raise your hands. Anyone here ever, right? Almost all of you, right? And in the panel too. How many here have actually done the same thing for leadership, right? Decent amount, right? But I think a lot of times there are, a lot of people come from CS degrees, 4 years staff, some people get masters, and then maybe they have some coding boot camps. But then you get thrown into management, and it's overnight. Right? So now you're going to be a manager, and there's no that concept of that. So for each of you, how did you best prepare for going from that road from individual contributor to manager? What did you do to help guide you on that path?
I started off with just a few direct reports, and Medium had this title called Group Lead, and it was explicitly a mentor, advocate, coach role. And so in some ways, my philosophy around management is very much mentor, advocate, coach, rather than like super tech lead type, because I came from that role, and like a lot of the people who I initially managed as a group lead, they came to me every week in our one-on-ones, and I didn't work on their teams. I didn't know what was, what they were doing, and so it's very much more of a coaching relationship.
Yeah. Anyone else have a specific example of kind of what helped them through that move from individual contributor to management?
So my personal fact was more like we were in early startup and we were hiring more people. I guess you're managing them now. So that was not great. I don't advise that. But now when I go to people that report to me, one of the things I recommend is going back to the point about leader versus manager. If you are in a position, if you're not in the position of being a manager, think about how you can lead this team, whether it is through specific projects or taking on a specific challenge, and use the fact that you don't have positional authority but still can influence people to really level up on your management skills. Because even when you do become manager, you don't want to just depend on that.
Sure. And a quick question too, and I'll go back to this one. How many here followed your path of you became a manager just sort of by default? Like, you picked up the short straw and you're, I'm suddenly leading a team now, versus you really, I want to be an engineering manager. I want to take that career path, sort of that parallel path change, right? How many here decided they just suddenly fell into the role and then started managing people, right? Yeah, a good part of you. How many said, you know what, in high school, I want to be an engineering manager? Probably not many. Took a guidance counselor test. Mine showed I was going to be a park ranger. But so continuing on that, what was some of the things that helped you go through that transition?
Sure. This is going to turn out to be a little bit of a, like, hey, you should totally use Plato accent, but I was really lucky. I had a great mentor as a manager many years ago, like 2003 when I was working at Stars. And like I hold on to him. Like I still refer to him all the time. Right? But he showed me all these things I never considered before that, and he became my sort of baseline as well. So later on, I was another company called Kind of Noon, and we made a project. I was an individual distributor, and after that, there was going to be another project coming up, and I was like, well, I can do better than that guy probably. So I was like, I didn't really know, right? But I thought I could based on this model that I had from my previous mentor. So I went up sheepishly to my CTO and said, hey, I want to try these. He looked at me and went, British accent, so I'm not going to try these. This is terrible. He said, I think you're ready. I went, okay. But that was interesting because it made me like really, I was really conscious of everything I did, you know? And I've sort of brought that to everything I've done. I'm just like, well, actually as a manager, as a leader, it's really important to know what you don't know and embrace that. And then kind of don't worry about the things that you do know really, because you have to have confidence that you do know it, and then spend energy figuring out what you don't know about the new job. And that's kind of how I approached it. Sort of worked out for me.
Ian, your first manager job was also at Facebook, right?
Yes.
Now, I think Facebook has a pretty good manager training sort of coaching process in place, don't they?
Oh yes. So kind of a history about myself. So I became manager because my manager wanted me to become manager. I said I don't know what it looks like to be a manager, and the manager said that okay, just no worries, just keep doing what you have been doing. Apparently he lied. So I changed a lot. I had to change everything that I had to do. The only thing that is not changed is that you know, the purpose, you know, the role that I play, which is to add value to other people, you know, to provide service to other people. The only thing that is not changed. Everything changed, like how to add service, add value to other people. And you mentioned the kind of the trainings that we have at Facebook. Yes, we do have a lot of trainings, but you know, the trainings is only bring you to this role, but it never follows after that. So that's why I think that Plato kind of work here is really going to help bridge that gap.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer in Plato too. That's my pitch. I noticed that in your past you were the Peace Corps. Is that true?
Oh no, I was kind of involved in the activities related to Peace Corps, but I was not eligible to be. But I worked with a couple of Peace Corps volunteers.
And do you think any of that volunteering can actually, whether it's Peace Corps or the food bank or anything, do you think that can help with leadership and growth?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's probably the best place to grow your leadership because there's no authority. Nobody has to listen to you. You have to really use your influence, right? To give you guys an example, so when I was involved in the Peace Corps, so I was in PhD. I didn't have any income. The only income I had was a research assistantship. How many of you had a PhD? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. Right? You know, $1,000 per month. And I was married, so money was a big deal to me. And I met this guy who was the Peace Corps, returned Peace Corps volunteers for the first time. And he showed me this great idea of how to help Peace Corps volunteers. And I think he influenced me. You know, he was the leader. And after that conversation, I was helping them to build this Peace Corps for free for 3 years. Even though money makes a big deal to me.
Excellent. Gene, this one's to you. You can pass the mic down. You've recently branched out into doing consulting and coaching for engineering managers yourself. What is when a new manager approaches you? What is one of the first things that you assess with them? One of the first things you try to work with them on to take that first step to improve?
So for me, one of the most difficult things in transitioning to management was changing my mindset of like my own sense of productivity. And I remember waking up one morning and seeing my entire calendar just fully booked with meetings. And I mean, I have 2 kids at home, so like this was not an easy feat, but I opened up like 4 pull requests to delete like 200 lines of code just so I could feel like a little bit better about my day. And so I think one of the main things I want to work with new engineering managers is really getting them through that mindset shift, because I think if they can really get on a good trajectory where they are basing their own productivity and impact on their team and not their own work or their individual work, that could make a huge positive impact on all their direct reports, not just then, but going forward too.
And Richard, you've worked in both smaller companies and some of the larger ones. What have you seen some of the differences between leadership effectiveness and style between each of the smaller and larger?
It's a little tough one because I'm about to go to like the biggest company I've ever been to.
Well, that's right. You two are going to be colleagues soon.
Yeah. I'll look for you. We'll hang out. So I mean, the trajectory of my career is really strange. And I started with like 500 people, and then kept getting smaller and smaller until I basically ran my own company with a co-founder of 5 to 10 people. And then up to now with Facebook, and I don't even know what I'm going to do. But I think the reason why I kind of subconsciously had the trajectory in the first place is because I view management and leadership as ultimately a function of your relationship with people, right? And you can it's just way more, but it's also easier and harder as you get to the smaller realm, because you're kind of like intimately familiar with what everyone's doing, right? And then especially if you're running a small company, you kind of know everything that's going on. You have to. That's really rewarding, it's also really hard. So as you get larger, then your view becomes a smaller percentage of the pie, right? And then a larger part of your job becomes interacting with other managers and other points of responsibility, so you can get a picture of how you can consume more. That's kind of like what I think about on my head. But
Sure. Sure, we're going to move over to some audience participation questions here. Not necessarily the first quarter. So the first one, let's just take this one because there's no good answer, right? I love to say there's good answers. How do you manage mediocre employees who you don't want to fire, right? And I have a specific answer for this, but I'm going to see how these guys take it. Richard just answered. Let's pass it over to It's to your right. To your right.
How do you manage mediocre employees that you don't want to fire? Well, first of all, it's very important to set the right expectations and make sure that you're aligned with the expectations with your employees. They should be very clear to them whether or not they're performing at the expected level or they need improvement. And in this case, if we're talking about like mediocre, that they're not rock stars, but they're still performing at expectations, that's good. And then you can talk about how do you go from meeting expectations to beyond. But if they're at a point where they need improvement, then it's very important to make sure that you clearly talk about what are the specific areas that they need to improve on, and then work with them to develop an action plan that allows them to improve on those and get from needs improvement to actually meeting expectations at their level.
Okay. And Eve,
I cannot disagree. So I think okay. So the question is how do you manage mediocre employees you do not want to fire? I think the way is to manage yourself. I think there is no team with the 8 players and 6 players. There are either 18 or 15, right? If you keep this mediocre player on your team, everyone will become mediocre. If this is what you want, then you are a mediocre manager. I think you have to fire. I think you have to manage it yourself. That is my opinion.
Goes back to the previous making mistakes and then making the tough decisions, right? Get enough information, and sometimes you have to make those decisions. Sometimes you just let them go.
So I'm looking forward to disagreeing about this slightly because I'm looking forward to having this problem because when you're Facebook, you have enormous hiring advantages, right? So a huge part of the management also is cost-benefit analysis, right? Sure, he can do that, and soon so will I, which I'm really excited. When you're running a small company in San Francisco where he's hiring people for like twice what I can pay, well, your economy changes, right? So you really have to think about what you're trading on. So you're like, well, this guy's, first of all, you said mediocre, so everyone's definition of mediocre is going to be different, right? So for me, I read that, I think it's funny, because by the time I've determined that they're mediocre, I don't know why I don't want to fire them anymore. right? But that's a different question. What I'm saying is more like if they're kind of getting by, but you know, like, oh man, it's gonna take me like, I don't know, 6 months to hire someone to fill a spot. But I need this thing to do so I can get this thing done so I can make this money thing, blah, 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 then your equation changes, right? So there's no one answer to this. You have to determine what makes sense for your group, for your business, for your situation.
Great. One last question, and we have enough time for one, is everyone here has, how do you inspire your team? Right? It could be there's a release that's coming on Monday, you want them to work on the weekend, they're working on a feature that's really not sexy, they don't want to do it. How do you go about being that leader instead of that manager, right? Not cracking the whip. How do you really inspire them to lead? Jean, you want to speak?
One thing I like to do, which is a little bit awkward, but I think it's effective, is to ask people what they want to get out of their time at a company. Because you have to talk about, you know, them leaving the company, which I think people don't want to talk about. But I think if you can understand what people want to get out of, you know, what's the story of their time there. So maybe it's like, yeah, it's not an exciting feature, but you know, this is a great opportunity to really hone your execution skill on something that's not that exciting. Like, that's just.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point, right? Okay. Yes, how do you inspire your team? Very uninspiring work they want to do, you have to get it done. How do you make it happen?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just comes down to working with the team and figuring out what they find exciting about the different projects. And often if there is something that everybody will be able to identify with and say that, okay, this is something that they're excited about. And on the other hand, if it is truly something that nobody's excited about, then yeah, you know, I think most people recognize that it is important to
Pretty dear.
I like to use fear. On the desk. Yeah. No, I mean, there's no like point of intent solution, at least not the way I do it. I try to create an environment with as much agency as possible, so people have a lot of ability to shape what they're going to work on stuff, right? If you set that up for a long time, then as things come along, people like bought into what you're all doing overall. I try to just set up a situation where I don't want to say, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. I say, here's a bunch of work we're going to do. How do you want to divide it up? How are we going to decide who does it? You guys decide, right? If I have to step in and tell them what they're going to do, I kind of feel like I failed or I picked the wrong people or something, right? That's the ideal case.
Perfect. Any last words?
A few words. So Tido Carriero said that there's only one way to make people do what they want to do. Sorry. There's only one way to make people do a thing, and it's to make them want to do it. Right? I think either, you know, increasing the incentive or increasing the penalty won't work at all, at least in the long term. I think I kind of agree with Jane. I think that you have to motivate them. I don't believe that there is absolutely not interesting, not exciting thing to do. So you have to change your team's perspectives. Right? People usually have the bias or mindset of the blind set that you have to change them. You have to help them to see the value of that. Sometimes you need to leave the the purpose of that. Sometimes you have to change your perspectives. To be honest, I haven't seen anything that is truly not exciting. Yeah, you have to truly believe in yourself.
Sure. Trying to find out what intrinsically motivates them to get the work done. Well, we are running out of time for this panel. I could sit here for a long time. We will be available after this. I think there's still some reception. So for any of you who have questions that didn't get answered, there's social media. I'm sure anyone in this panel will be happy to take an email or Facebook or any request and answer you guys. Thank you again for your panel. Appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of the evening and look forward to the rest of the talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you to each of the panelists. So now we still have two keynotes. One by Tido Carriero, coming right now to tell us about how you manage the transition from a manager to a manager of managers. So Tido is the VP at Segment. He has worked previously at Dropbox and at Facebook, and you're now managing the engineering team at Segment. Thank you so much for being a mentor and for accepting to talk to me.
Thank you. I'm feeling incredibly awkward that I'm wearing the same shirt that I'm wearing. Cool. So I have 3 stories that I want to share. Each of these are kind of important stories in my journey to becoming a manager of managers. There are life lessons about each story that I will share as I go. So story 1 is really about my initial transition to managing managers, sort of where it all got started. So for this story, we'll rewind to 2012. I just joined Dropbox. I'm super excited about leading the Dropbox for business engineering effort. Apparently, no one was working on that before I got there, and so I wanted to start working on that. And so I had been there for about 3 to 6 months. We were kind of cruising on the set of projects. We had a pretty awesome roadmap. There was pretty clear feedback from customers about exactly what set of things that customers wanted, and so we were cruising on this roadmap. And basically, we hit this stumbling block of sorts, which is all feature requests were leading toward this one big project that we called 2Account. And 2Account was basically the ability to have a work account and a personal account running at the same time on the desktop client, on the iOS and Android apps, on the website. And obviously, in the early days, Drew and Arash were not, as they were hacking on the early architecture of all these platforms, they were not thinking through like, oh, we should support multiple users one day, let's architect this thing properly. And so this was a really, really big endeavor. We actually had an early PM, I distinctly remember telling me that this project would be impossible to ship, to which I said, challenge accepted, and that sort of became my mission about 3 to 6 months in at Dropbox. And so that project was sort of the beginning of my career to managing managers. And there was basically a pretty big gap in the immediate team I had in what we needed to do to actually ship this thing. Specifically, we needed to re-architect the desktop client across Windows, Linux, and Mac. We needed to re-architect iOS. We needed to re-architect Android, and we needed to re-architect the web. And so I just kind of charged at this problem head first, as I like to do with problems. And basically, time went on, and we probably took a couple years off my life, but we managed to ship this project within about 6 months. And after I was done, they asked if I wanted to take over managing this team that they were forming called Dropbox App. And so the Dropbox App team was essentially the core team that I had just sort of project managed from the outside to get this 2Account project done. And so I was super excited. You know, I had been waiting my entire career for this opportunity, and I said, of course I want to do this. I started thinking about all of these like awesome like career plans I had for these like new engine managers I would be taking on. I excitedly get to my first one-on-ones, and they were like, "Who the hell are you? We do not want to report to you." That's a bummer. So I think the kind of lesson I learned from this, and it was a painful first 3 to 6 months, but it's every single relationship, and it's not just people who report to you, although I think it's especially important for people who report to you. There's this trust-building period. You need to really, really, really invest in that relationship, and it took 3 to 6 months for some of these relationships to get to where I wanted to be. And I think that was like a kind of rude awakening, but an important lesson for me that I was completely unprepared for. The second story is right around this time. This was hiring my first external manager. So this was about 2 months before I made the transition to leading Dropbox App, early 2013. A gift from the heavens fell onto my lap. A principal engineer at VMware was incredibly excited. He only wanted to work on one project, Dropbox for Business. He didn't care at all what role, like IC, tech lead, people manager, like didn't matter to him. He just saw a huge potential in Dropbox for Business and wanted to make it so. And so we interviewed him. He absolutely aced it. He's like, okay, I'm going to join the Dropbox for Business team. Remember, we gave him a ramp-up project, which he just absolutely crushed out of the park. He was a little rusty on the Python, but really knocked it out of the park. And so as I was sort of 2 months later, as I was getting promoted into this new role, leading a larger team with bigger scope, I needed a manager to take over the Dropbox for Business team, which was I had been leading, and so naturally I thought of him. And so I remember this one-on-one pretty distinctly. I'm a little nervous at this point because usually when I'm transitioning a first-time manager, 3 to 5 people is like a good number of direct reports to start with. This is a little bit bigger a team. I think it's probably about eight people, something like that. And I say, hey Matt, would you be willing to take on this? I think it's a little bit of a challenge as a first-time manager, taking on a team of 8 people. Matt looks at me a little funny. He's like, I'm not sure how this didn't come up in the interview, but I was managing a team of 150 people at VMware, which are bright red. The lesson here is at some point, this is the greatest privilege about managing managers. You will find someone, you will hire them, and they will be far better than you at your job. This person that I'm talking about is Matt Eccleston. He is the VP of Engineering at Dropbox now. He technically reported to me for 3 years, sort of a bizarre arrangement. But I will promise you I learned a lot more from him than he learned from me. And eventually just got out of the way. So I think that is like a really, really special part of managing managers, is you get that opportunity to do that. And so if that happens to you, get the heck out of the way. I spent too long getting out of the way in retrospect. Third story, I often refer to this as my biggest mistake at Dropbox. This was late 2014, so to set the scene, we had been hiring a whole bunch of people through these acqui-hires throughout 2014. I probably led something like 10 different small acquisitions of like 1 to 3 engineers for the most part. And sort of toward the end of 2014, I found like this awesome company. They were located in Tel Aviv, Israel. A team of 15 to 20 people. We do the acqui-hire process. We interview everyone. I interview the site lead. Like spend a lot of time there. Just like crazy good process, and we really kind of check all of the boxes. We decided to go through with the acquisition, and about 3 to 6 months later, every single EM and PM in San Francisco absolutely hates me. And the problem was we had sort of like rationally known about sort of the time zone difference. We had sort of rationally even known that Tel Aviv works Sunday through Thursday, which is a slightly different work week from here, obviously. But we hadn't realized with sort of how painful it would be kind of going for each of these edge managers, each of these PMs in San Francisco, to be awake at like 9 a.m. on a Sunday, like giving the Tel Aviv team instructions on what to do for their equivalent of Monday morning, or actually their Monday evening by that point. And so I think, I don't know the exact lesson to take here. I think it's that you can really run a process well and you can kind of do all of the things properly, but people systems are a hell of a lot more complex than engineering systems, and you can still totally get it on. I still, when I think back to like how exactly I would have avoided this or known, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, would have spent a lot more time talking to the San Francisco team about just about this and whether they wanted to make the group commitment that we needed to make this thing successful. But it definitely was not my finest moment. So yeah, in closing, I guess I just want to talk briefly about this concept of failure as I was like reviewing all of these stories and thinking about a lot more stories in the past. When I was picking the ones I wanted to tell, I kind of kept coming back to this feeling of failure and just realizing that I had made all of these mistakes, and we spent a lot of time talking about that. I think as your org is growing, and by the end of my time at Dropbox, I was managing about 170 people across a bunch of different offices. Basically, your opportunities for failure in your org also start to grow quite a bit. Think about the math, like if everyone has like one bad week every 3 years, when you're managing a team of 170 people, there will be one bad week happening across your org every single week. Those fires will probably come back up to you, and you will have to deal with them. And I think it's really easy to just kind of get swept away by this feeling of failure. And I do this little ritual now. So every 6 weeks we have a board meeting in segment. And I write down like a very detailed synthesis of everything that has gone wrong. There's always stuff that's gone wrong. I also do a detailed synthesis of all the progress we've made since the last board meeting. And then I sit there for about 5 minutes and I just pat myself on the back very aggressively for all of the things going right. And I think I stay sane as my kind of roles and responsibilities have grown over the years is you really need to appreciate all the things that you're doing right. You don't get that sort of dopamine hit of watching your code make it to production and like be viewed by the world, and like I remember that rush. It's a great rush. And so as you start to kind of get away from that, I think it's really important that you kind of take a step back and like appreciate all the things that are going right and all the progress that you have been making. Since it's really easy to forget about that and be swept away by the failure. All right, thank you.
Right. How do you measure your manager's performance?
I mean, just it kind of boils down to like what's getting done on the team. I think I do a little bit of the more you can kind of view it as a, I mean, obviously you dive in, but the more you can view it as a black box when you're thinking about performance, it's like what resources are going in here, kind of what investment are we making as a company, and what are the results that are coming out of the black box, and I think like that's like the most baseline. Actually, one of my managers was asking me today. He's like, this is my last one of the day. He said, "How did you know that X person wasn't doing well? You're like quite far away from this. Like, I just don't understand how you had that spidey sense. Can you tell me?" I said, it's very simple. Every week, like at the end of the week, I just like ask myself, like, what did each person accomplish? And if I can't answer that question, so maybe one week it's okay, but if it's like a couple weeks in a row where I don't know what they've been doing, what the result is, I start to get worried and I start to ask. And I think managers are pretty similar. It's like a sum of a bunch of resources, and you want to see sort of results coming out the other side. Now, obviously, it doesn't always happen perfectly, and it's important that at that point to dig in and figure out is someone like the wrong fit for the team, like are the resources wrong, is the project not clear, there can be a million things that are wrong, but I think at the most basic level, a team that is happy and a team that is really cranking out impact, it's a healthy team and a very strong manager, and when that's not happening, can be concerned and dig in. Role of VPE versus CTO. So this one is different at every place. Segment is sort of unusual. So I got to segment on my first day. The CTO and one of our product co-founders both asked if they could report to me. It was a very bizarre and strange move. I said, I guess. I think our CTO really wanted nothing to do with hiring. He had been hiring for quite some time. He also really wanted nothing to do with product management or project management or people management. And so we have a very blissful relationship. All of the things that I love doing are things that are not on his interest list. I would say CTOs tend to be a little bit more responsible for sort of setting the technical direction, the public face of the brand of the company. So Calvin, our CTO, does a bunch of incredible writing for our blog, writing that I'm definitely not capable of doing. He's deeply responsible for hiring lots of great engineering talent because he writes all of these great engineering blog posts. But it really depends on the company and the CTO and the VPE, but I would say VPs tend to be more responsible for hiring and people management and scaling the org and making sure that the black box keeps functioning well, and CTOs tend to be a little bit more responsible for the brand and the technical direction and the future of the product and kind of seeing around corners, especially infrastructure corners or product corners that we're likely to run into. All right, am I done? All right, thanks everyone.
So you're not wearing the same shirt as in the video.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Tido, for specifying about your transition from a manager to manager of manager. So the last keynote tonight is Luc Vincent, VP Engineering at Lyft, will come and explain us how he builds an engineering structure at Lyft today. You used to work at Google before. You've been leading huge engineering teams. So thank you very much for taking the time on the timetable to come and share your experience with us.
You hear me okay? Good. So I'm the last speaker between you and one more drink, so I'm going to try to be quick. Do not keep you too long. The food is great. If you're a French company, thank you, Plato, for so as Astrid, I lived for about 3 months as VP of engineering. Prior to this, I was at Google for 12 years. I met Juan at about a year ago. I loved the team's mission, the energy. He said to invest in the company, and I didn't know that investing, I also had to work for it. So I'm here, as a mentor as well as a speaker. But anyway, so they asked me to share some thoughts about how to build engineering structure. And coincidentally, that's sort of what I'm doing right now at Lyft. I'm essentially trying to hire over 100 people or more by year end. So in doing this, I have to think about how to do it right. And I've got some guiding principles. I don't pretend to know everything that there is to know about building engineering structures. I just have some principles that guide me as I do this. So, and the first one is that I think you should really always go after your top talent first, right? So, some people love to think about what they call org design. Build this beautiful org, you got your, manager of this and that, manager of that over here, your functional group over here. You know what? If you start with it from the scratch, you will never find the people that you want to have. Nobody will fit these buckets that you have uniquely defined, in your org structure. So I think best is to have an open mind and go after the top people, right? The best you can find. And once you find them, you can sort of organize around them, and they will help you also grow your org. They will help you have a network here, so you will first of all be able to grow faster because they will do their job in hiring, and then eventually you'll be able to sort of fill in the gaps in the org with maybe more specialized talent. So I would start with that. So not too specify your org. The other thing I think about is sort of functional versus project based. You can build either an org around a leader owning a project, and every person working this project, or you can also essentially have an organization where you have functional teams that sort of work across the org horizontally and in a matrix way. I think both have merit. I personally prefer the project-based, maybe because of my career at Google, where typically groups were around one project of their own. I think if you have these functional groups, it's more difficult for them to have an identity, right? The identity is to be helping across the org, and you lose a sense of ownership of project. So my bias for project-based, but I think both have merit, and it's up to you to decide what will work for you. Just think about it as you build your org. The other thing that keeps me busy as well is thinking about the mix of sort of seniority in the team. I think for a team to click, to work together, you need a mix of senior people, junior people, right? Junior people, they are willing to do things that somebody more senior will be bored doing, right? Conversely, if you have senior people, they're going to be able to take on more challenging content, and also net junior people. So I think having the right balance is the key here. And again, junior and senior mean different things to different people. I would say, on balance, talk about having the senior ones, and they will help you see the culture of the organization, see the system you need to use to be effective, see a bunch of things that I think matter in the long run for your org. Let's see. So one other thing that I typically think about in building the org is sort of geographic distribution of the org. We heard about how it's difficult to have teams in Mountain View or in the Bay Area and in Israel. I could not agree more. I've had, in my last job at Google, I had teams in Beijing, in Seattle, in Mountain View, in San Francisco, in Zurich, in France. It was a bit of a mess, right? So it makes things difficult. So this being said, you can avoid it with our org. You typically will have some geographic distribution of people. As you grow these teams, I would think that the best thing you can do is to try to have kind of an identity for each office. So don't have every office do everything, right? Try to have office using A and B, office number 2 doing C and D, and then things like this. Do not also have very junior people report sort of across many time zones to somebody at headquarters or somewhere else. It just doesn't work. So think about having leaders in local offices that can really lead and really trust them. So we heard a lot about trust as well this evening, how trust matters to you as a leader. I think, to me, it's like the key, right? You have to surround yourself with the trust, right? And it's no wonder that when you move from org to org or team to team, you try to sort of bring the same people with you because you built that trust with them over the years, right? And that's totally critical. If you build surround yourself with people you trust, you can delegate to them, and you can grow yourself, and you can sort of do more. And of course, there's different levels of trust. You can have people that you trust and challenge. They're your star. They are the people that will go farther and eventually go faster than you at some point. Like we've heard the Dropbox example. Or you have people that are slightly sort of maybe less capable that you need to somehow support more. And the problem is if you don't trust them, you don't get anything done. So surround yourself with people you trust, and that's how you could succeed and grow, delegate, and get stuff done. So with this, I will move on to questions. So let's see. The first question: how do you calculate when it comes to hire? Time to hire and it comes to delayed hire. Gee, that's very tough. I don't know, honestly. So we try to move as fast as possible, right? I think typically, any delayed system means you're gonna get less done. So I would say it's probably on balance best to spend more and go faster. Right? I think that'd be my bias. But I don't think I fully understand the questions. We'll ask the question. Maybe we can talk some more wine later. Okay. Thank you. Gosh, for this tough question, how do you balance speed and agility versus structure? I guess again my bias would be speed and agility comes before structure. I think structure is always evolved no matter what. And you can't just have a structure that's ever but maybe speed and agility is more of a cultural thing. And so I think having seem to agree, thank you. having this be part of the culture is probably more important than the structure. Let's see. So next question. What is started as a startup CEO? What is the right moment to bring in VP of management? So just I think it's too early today. Yeah. Good question. I think it really depends on the exact situation. So I'm not sure I can give advice that's sort of applicable across the board. I would tend to think that if you can find somebody top notch, you would bring them in, and then eventually the role will evolve, and they will find something to do that matters to you. So I think we talked about what leadership is. Leadership is about sort of setting a vision. You set a vision, and you get great leaders and ICs and top notch people to find this vision, and you're able to manage to house it and bring them in, and then by all means stay with as someone find the right role, and you will help them find the right role. So it's probably never too early to do this. What do you think? What can you trust? Well, and what is the version between them? Well, I know lots of people that I trust that I'm able to influence. Well, in this room, or not just that. Okay, so I think it's different, right? Some people you trust that you an amazing job at what they do, but they are more maybe opinionated. They are difficult to influence, and on the other hand, some people, maybe typically more junior people, are easier to influence. They sometimes might be careful. They might drink your words, and so be very careful what you say. You can influence them too much. And I've learned that in meetings, when you are there expressing an opinion as a leader, especially at the VP level, your opinion matters a lot. So be careful what you say. You have too much influence with a few words. So yeah, think about carefully. So we're done. Okay.
Thank you everyone for having spent the evening with us. Thank you for all the mentors. And that's the cocktail. And the mentors, can we take a picture of all of us and the team? JB? We can check if they are all the mentors today. And you can go to the cocktail. Thank you very much. That's one thing.
Tasha, very